Even if you can streamline a lot of the process, I feel like people want to tune into podcasts for the authenticity. And I don't think that will be replaced. I'm sure there will be some people who listen to podcasts that are AI hosted, but I think the majority of people want real, authentic conversations.
Podcast Junkies, episode 370. Welcome back. I'm your host, Harry Duran. If you are new to the show, it's the one where we search out the most fascinating voices in the world of podcasting. We get them to kick back their heels, talk about their show, but more importantly, what's happening in their world and what's on their mind. And those are the best parts of these conversations. If you're a regular listener or viewer of the show, welcome back. Thank you for all you do to support this show. It's a passion project for me that I've been doing since 2014, and I'm showing no signs of slowing down. I love having these conversations. Thank you for everything you do to share it, whether it's sharing this specific episode, something on social, or even commenting. Every little bit counts, and I see it all, and I really appreciate it. In case you missed the last episode, we spoke with Lou Bartone. He's a video marketing expert and a podcast producer, and he shared his journey from working in radio and TV to running his own video production agency. We talked about the evolution of video and user-friendly tools like Descript and Pictory, and Lou offered great insights on creating engaging content for platforms like YouTube and LinkedIn. He emphasized the importance of adapting to different formats and audience preferences. It's a great tactical episode, so please check it out if you haven't done so already. This week, we speak to Eric Melchor. He's a marketing expert and a podcaster who shared his journey from Texas to Bucharest, Romania, of all places. His story is a testament to how life can take totally unexpected turns, leading to new opportunities and personal growth, and I really love this conversation. We discussed his transition from corporate marketing to the startup world and how he eventually found his way into podcasting with his show, Innovators Can Laugh. I love the way his mind works, and this was a great concept for a show. You're going to love how he built this. His insights into the podcasting world are both practical and inspiring, and he talks about innovative ways he's grown his audience. We delve into his thoughts on AI and podcasting, the importance of authenticity, and how he's leveraging tools like ChatGPT to enhance productivity. His passion, which you can clearly see and hear on this episode for bringing people together, and his commitment to fatherhood really shined through, which I loved. These are my favorite types of episodes. Here are 5 actionable takeaways I want you to listen for in this episode. Number 1, leverage Quora for podcast production. Love this idea, and I'm going to start promoting it in my own show. 2, use personal videos to connect with guests. Send them that video before the recording to help them feel more comfortable and familiar with you. This can lead to better conversations. 3, play guests' favorite songs before recording. This is another great idea. Ask them for their favorite song and then play it when they join the recording session. Love that. 4, explore AI tools to boost productivity. Experiment with assistance for tasks like email management, call prep, and content creation. These can all go a long way towards improving efficiency. And 5, host casual gatherings to build connections. Eric talks about organizing small cocktail parties or meetups to facilitate meaningful interactions. Remember, if you are loving this episode, one of the best things you can do is to click that subscribe button below. That's how we grow the viewership. More people can find this channel. More people can find this content. I would truly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. If you're feeling extra generous, head on over to podcastjunkies.com/love to leave me a rating and a review. Nothing would please me more than to read this out on a future episode. We cover a lot of ground here, but rest assured you can always visit podcastjunkies.com to read the full show notes for each episode, which includes all guest links as well. Okay, enjoy this wide-ranging and fantastic conversation with Eric. So, Eric Melchor, thank you for joining me on Podcast Junkies.
Hey, pleasure to be here, Harry.
So, you're dialing in, as we were chatting pre-call from Bucharest. How'd you end up there?
That's right. Yeah, Texan in Bucharest. I've been here almost 5 years. And it's crazy. In 2010, I lived here for 1 year. I was in New York before that for about 7 years. Didn't want to go back to Texas just yet. And I saw this advertisement. This recruiter reached out to me from Romania, from the largest media agency, and they were looking for people from the States and from the UK to come educate their clients on online advertising. And
Oh, wow.
I thought, why not? And so it was like a 1-year contract. And so I thought, I'm pretty adventurous. I had traveled a lot because I used to work for an airline. And I said, okay, why not?
Okay.
Came here, and this is where I fell in love with my wife. And it was one of those things like love at first sight. But I was scheduled to come back to Houston.
Okay.
And so I came back to Houston, but we were through instant messaging, Yahoo Messenger all the time. We were on Skype all the time. I'd be driving to work and I'd have my phone in front of me on my dashboard and communicating through Skype. And I ended up coming back here to Bucharest to visit her, or we would meet in Paris, or we would meet in Barcelona. And we figured out, hey, how are we going to make this work? And
Yeah.
so I convinced her to move to Houston. I told her it
Okay.
was like a European city, very cosmopolitan, and totally made that up. One of the things I did do, though, is I bought a used Aprilia scooter, this Italian scooter, 200cc, and
Yeah.
I bought this cute pink polka dot helmet for her. And
Okay.
I bought a condo, in a one-bedroom condo in downtown Houston. It's like the only
Okay.
walkable part of the city. And so when she did move,
Yeah.
she had the scooter, she had the condo. So it was kind of European in that
Got
sense.
a
Yeah.
European in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. In that
Yeah.
sense. So fast forward, we got married, had 2 kids. COVID happens.
Hmm.
And we had just had our daughter. And, unfortunately in the States, women have to go back to work after 3 months after giving
Yeah.
birth. But the daycares were closed. And we're working at home with a newborn plus a 2-year-old. And it was just crazy. I mean, we're trying to work, trying to watch
Yeah.
and raise these, babies.
Yeah.
And her mom made the suggestion, if you guys come here, I can help out with the kids. And we were like, haha, that's funny. But, after like a couple of days, we were thinking
Yeah.
about it. And we're like, actually, it kind of makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
she can
Of
help out
course.
with the kids. We're working
Yeah.
remote. And there were so many other pros. I mean, some of the pros were that the weather's nicer compared to Houston. There's like 4 seasons. There's cost of living is less.
Of
There's
course.
a lot more places to visit. I mean, you can drive and get to the beach, the ocean, or the
Mm.
mountains in 3 hours.
Wow.
Whereas in Texas, you can drive for like 15 hours and you're still in Texas, right? It's all
Yeah.
flat.
I've done that drive.
Oh man, it's brutal, right?
Yeah.
Brutal. And so we're like, let's try it out for a couple of years, see how it goes. And it's already been 4+ years. And
Wow.
the way things are in the States, we don't really have any. We're pretty good here right now. I think we'll just stay
Yeah.
here for a little longer.
Yeah, I mean, stuff's going crazy over here. It must be interesting to watch from afar, especially as an American, to see what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. Well, a few months after we moved here, we had the January 6th Capitol riots were going
Oh
on.
my gosh.
And then in Texas, there was this big freeze for like 3 or 4 days where there was no
Oh, that's
power.
right. Yeah.
And my family was calling and they were like, we don't have heat. It's like 40 degrees inside our homes. And my wife and I are looking at each other. We're like, I think we made a good decision so far.
Made a good call there. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. What's been the biggest adjustment for you living there?
Well, work wise, the big adjustment is that I've been working remote for almost 5 years.
Okay.
Whereas previously back in Houston, obviously I went into the office, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
That's been a big adjustment. The other good adjustment, I've had a chance to pursue some hobbies that have turned into businesses.
Hmm.
And the other big adjustment is that, as Americans, I feel like we're workaholics. Even when we go on vacation, we're always still checking email, we're always still working. Generally, never take more than a week vacation. But here in Europe, oh my God! I mean, a week is not enough. A week is like, okay, that's not even a vacation, right?
Of course.
I mean, they take vacation very seriously. I mean, they
Yeah.
don't respond
They
to
do vacations
emails.
well in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been a
Yeah.
big adjustment for me. I guess you would say it's a good adjustment. I get to slow down a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. The infamous Spanish siestas, right?
Well, we don't have the siestas like they do in Spain, but
Yeah.
it's not far off.
Yeah, I'm sure. So prior to getting into the podcasting space, like what was the trajectory of your career?
So in Houston, I was achieving everything that I wanted. I wanted to be like a marketing director, have a budget, have a team, be in the senior leadership. And I achieved that. I mean, I was marketing director at publicly traded companies and I was really good at it. I really enjoyed it, making really good money. And when COVID happened, obviously that impacted a lot. That impacted my job. I got laid off. And so I'd always been fascinated by startups. And I wanted to, for me, it was almost like, what they're doing in the startup world in terms of marketing, how they go to market strategy and they're trying to get their first users. And, it's a very competitive landscape. I always wanted to test myself in that sense to see if I was like really good at marketing like I thought I was. And so that's what I did is that I started working for startups here in Europe. And the way I did it, Harry, is because I didn't have any background with SaaS or with startups or anything like that, is that I reached out to a few startups and offered to share with them like a 60-page presentation on my user experience as it relates to their product. I went through their user journey, and here's everything that I want to share with them in terms of moments of friction where I felt like maybe the customer was confused, other points that I felt like, you can improve the engagement here, or here's something else you can try. And so for a 30-minute call, why not? You would pay thousands to get this kind of, valuable feedback. And so I did that for 2 startups. One of them led to a consulting gig. And then from there, I was able to start building a network and relationships and connections over here, get some testimonials on LinkedIn, and just start building my reputation. And one thing led to another, and I got my first real gig at a startup called Bonjoro. They were actually based out of Australia, but they had people globally. And I got to work with Casey Hill, who's well known in the SaaS space, and I learned a lot from him. I mean, wow, we were like a speedboat in terms of what we did. I mean, I had never conducted webinars before. I had never spoken to customers before. I had never really been on LinkedIn before, writing content and try to build a personal brand. And this was like 3 years ago, before it's very popular now. And I was just doing all those things. Every day was just something different. And I learned a great deal during my time with Bonjoro. And then after that, I saw the opportunity to get into podcasting. And that's what led me to create B2B Pod Pros.
So it seems like marketing has been in your blood for quite a long time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even in college, I've always been fascinated by like advertisements and seeing something that resonated with me and just like, oh, wow, I like that. I think it's marketing, but the ability to, I guess you would say, empathy. And so when I was in college, I was waiting tables, and I was trying to calculate it the other day. I was like, if I worked 4 days a week waiting tables and I had 6 tables, let's just say 4 people a table,
Sure.
I'm talking to, at 5 shifts a week, at least 500 people a month. And I did that for years. I did that in Houston. I did that for New York. And so the ability just to communicate with people and start building relationships, I kind of trace back to my waiting tables career. But aside from that, I've always loved advertising and marketing as well. Yeah.
Are you a Mad Men fan?
I do like the show. I haven't seen every episode, but it's good, especially the copywriting, it's really, really good.
Yeah, the quality of life for people during that time was probably not the best.
Yeah.
And there were certain things that probably wouldn't hold up too well in this day and age.
Very, very true.
But if you focus on like the business of it and then the marketing aspects of it, I'm sure there's a lot of takeaways.
Yeah.
So when did podcasting come on your radar?
Yeah. And so at Bonjoro, we realized that being a guest on podcasts led to an increase in traffic. I think we had gone on more than 30 shows, and people were indicating on the sign-up form, where did they hear about us? And more and more people were saying podcasts, and it was leading to an impact in ARR. And so we realized...
And actually just probably be helpful for people to explain what Bonjoro is. If they're not familiar with the tool,
Yeah, so Bonjoro is sort of like Loom. It's like a personal video tool, and you can quickly and easily send personal videos. And the great thing about that tool is that you can sync it with a lot of different platforms you use, like HubSpot, MailChimp, ActiveCampaign. And so at certain parts in the journey, maybe if you send out a proposal, you can also send out a video real quickly, and you can do it with your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we realized, okay, this is working. We're able to reach our ideal customer profile by going on these podcasts as a guest. And one of the people from the company suggested I should be a host. And the reason is that we would get on these calls, and we had people from all over, many different countries. And until the meeting got started, while we're waiting for like the founder to hop on, I would ask these random questions from people like, hey, in your country, what is a food dish that you don't like, but a lot of people in your country like,
Yeah.
And people would start sending pictures of what the dish looked like. We've got this Jello, and there's like these bones inside of it. And, it's just, we're like, oh, that sounds awful, And people are like, oh, no, but in my country, my mother-in-law makes this dish and it's awful. And, And, every week I was like asking these random questions, and someone made the comment like, oh, you should have a podcast where you interview like international people or something. And it stuck with me. And this was 4 years ago. And I thought, why not? And so I'm in startups. Let me interview European startup founders. And it's going to be a very casual conversation. We'll learn about their business, who they are, what they're building. But the idea is to make it casual and fun and have a good time. And so the show was called Innovators Can Laugh. And so that led to the idea.
And so is that still running?
It's still running. Every
Okay.
season, I try to do it, focus on a different country. We focused on Lithuania, Bulgaria, Romania, of course, the UK, the Netherlands. And right now, we just wrapped up the season with England or with UK.
Mm,
And I'm not sure which country I'll do next. But the other thing that I do, Harry, is that it's been great for traveling because now when I go to a place in Europe, I can just reach out to the people I interviewed and I got
yes, of
people
course.
who can show me around. That's the other benefit of doing the show. Yeah.
And how did you, when you think about the format, because I've been doing this show since 2014, and it's just fun to have like an open format. And it's helped me become a better interviewer, a better listener,
Yeah.
asking better questions. But I'm always curious, how you keep the blade sharpened when it comes to hosting and, what inspires you, who inspires you, and how do you keep motivated with your show?
Yeah. Well, the first two seasons, I did something that I have yet to see on another podcast. And I don't do it anymore because it requires a lot of work. But what
Yeah.
I would do is that during the show at the very end, I would ask like these four distinct questions for each guest. Okay. And then in the next show, I would ask the podcaster, like, okay, I had so and so on the show before you. I asked her these questions and I want to see if you can get them right. And I would give them multiple choice.
Okay.
So and so's favorite thing for Valentine's Day to receive is A, cookies, B,
Yeah.
a nice dinner, C. And so they had to think of the founder, right? And they're like, okay, let me see that founder and let me guess. And if whoever got the most points right that season would win the prize. And so
Okay.
that to me was a lot of fun. Every guest had a lot of time, a good time. But not only that, they were actually intrigued to learn more about that founder that they were trying, to write
That's
answers on.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
so they would tune into the show to find out if the next guests were able to guess their answers. And
Very
so you
smart.
had, yeah, it was very unique. I would love to bring that back. Maybe in the future I will. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that. So I did that for a couple of seasons. And the other thing that I did for a while is I would try to speak in their language at the very beginning. And so I would hit record. And like if it was like Bulgarian, I would,
Yeah.
hi, welcome to the show, blah, blah, blah,
Sure, sure.
And they would just get a kick out of it because I would butcher
Yeah.
their language, right? Some people would be like, was that Dutch? You know?
Well, nowadays with ChatGPT and AI, Google Translate, I mean, it's pretty easy. You throw the phrase in there, and
Yeah.
they'll probably even help you with the
Oh
pronunciation.
yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, I did that for a while. But one of the things I try to do for all my guests, and it definitely helped a lot, was before the show, before the recording, send them a personal video, usually a day or two before, because I want them to
Hmm.
see my face, hear my
Yeah.
voice,
Yeah.
kind of get to know what it's going to be like beforehand.
Yeah.
And then on my registration form, I have a question that asks, what is your favorite song? Okay.
Hmm.
And so when they get into the recording studio, the date and time of the recording,
Yeah.
when they log in, I have their favorite song playing, you know?
Perfect. Yeah.
And so when you hear your favorite song playing, it's an automatic
Yeah.
smile, right?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
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 It puts you in a good mood. And so those two things I always did for every guest, and it put them in a good mood, it lightened them up, and it just made the conversation flow, just in a very relaxed state.
And are these, when you think about these ideas and inspiration, is it just from listening to other shows or being on other shows, or this just stuff that, kind of like the way your marketing brain works? Because I can relate to that. Like, I'm always thinking of like new ideas, and sometimes if I get in the flow, there's this marketing part of my brain that just gets lit up if I'm talking to
Yeah.
the right person.
Yeah, no, the best marketing campaigns I ever ran were from stuff that I've seen from other industries or
Yeah.
I heard somebody talk about and I thought,
Hmm.
wow, he wasn't even doing a marketing campaign, but I can apply that to what I'm doing. I'll never forget Simon Sinek one time. I was watching a video and Simon Sinek is the founder of Let's Start With Why. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
know who he is.
Yeah.
And he was telling the story of how he helped a beggar on the street earn like 5 times more money than the beggar usually does in half the time. And so the beggar had this sign that said, please donate. And he told the beggar, hey, I'm going to give you this new sign. Just try it out. And no matter what, I'm going to give you, the $40 or whatever.
Sure. Sure.
And the sign said something like, if you only give once a year, if you only give once a year, think of me, I'll be here. That's all the
Mm.
sign said. And within a couple of hours, that beggar, with a person on the street, the homeless person, it already made like $100.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when I heard that at the time, I was working for a retail electricity company. And so I tested an ad and it said something like, if you only choose an electricity plan once a year, think of us. We'll be here. We'll be here next
That's
year
a
or
great.
something. Click-through rates, open rates, sky high.
Wow.
By far the best campaign, that year for that product. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many ideas, so many takeaways that people can apply both to their business, but to their podcast. So thank you for sharing that. So I'm always curious because, like I said, I've been doing this show, I'm going on 11 years now, actually this month. What keeps you motivated to keep podcasting? You're saying you're going to different countries, because at some point, people, if they're not passionate about something, it'll just fade away and they'll just feel like, oh, that was nice to do for a couple of seasons. So I'm curious for something that seems to light you up, like what keeps you motivated, keeps you like into, because it's a lot of work, as you know, to put a show together, to schedule guests, to find the time to, and whether you have a team or you're doing it solo, to produce it, to market it, to get the word out.
Yeah. Yeah. You're so right. I mean, passion, I think generally fades after year 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And so that's where the word committed comes in.
Mm,
And I think if you're committed to something that you're going to go through the motions and do the steps no matter what. But what keeps me energized is my community. And so I founded this community of B2B podcasters, and we get together once a month and we share tips. And I've learned so much from other podcasters, even though I've been doing this for a few years, but I've learned stuff that's blown my mind. I mean, Sarah Block, she basically doubled her downloads one summer, and these were old episodes. And she created this summer, it was called the Summer Series. It was raw and uncut recordings. And she changed like the podcast, the artwork, and she added this like summary type music in the
yeah.
show to
Yeah.
start off with. And it was just the raw file of the recording. And that was it. I mean, there was no new recordings. And she called it the Raw and Cut Summer Series. And it had this cute
Wow.
artwork that her 8-year-old did in Canva. And her episodes doubled that summer. I mean, it was just like, we're watching this because we had these meetups once a month. And
Yeah.
me and the other podcasters are just like blown away. We're like, we can't believe that. It was just crazy. There's many podcasters who've shared ideas. One of them shared an idea on how they get their guests to distribute and promote the show. And it was so simple that we're watching this and we're like, I can't believe we're not doing that, or we didn't think of doing that. And the idea was this: after a recording takes place
Yeah.
and you have an idea of when the date's going to go live for that show,
Yeah.
send
Yeah.
that person a Google Calendar invite. And it
Mm,
could be like a 30-minute placeholder. And then in that message or in that calendar invite, have the wording or have the message that says, hey, your recording is going to go live today. We're going to share it on YouTube, LinkedIn, your social media channels. You can access assets for the file like images and recordings here. And it's a link to a Google folder.
yeah.
Obviously, there's nothing in there yet, but there will be material in there. And there's other bullet point. Oh, please give us a review here. And then if you haven't subscribed to our show yet, you can do that right here. And
Yeah.
just send that out after the recording. And now it's a placeholder in the guest's calendar. And it makes them so much more likely to promote your show. And it's like a no-brainer,
Mm,
right? And that somebody
yeah.
shared
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
tip. So, we get these tips that other
Yeah.
people are doing. And by far, it makes you a lot more productive and a lot more excited, because if you weren't really growing as much, but you start applying a lot of these things that we share and we learn, then obviously you're going to see an impact on your show.
Yeah, so I coach students and we have an agency, so we produce shows for our business owners. And a lot of times, when I'm having conversations with them, I always like stress to them that there's no silver bullet for podcasting. There's no like do this one thing and your
Yeah.
show is going to get to like tens of thousands of downloads. And a lot of times it's a lot of little things like you're just mentioning, like the little tips and the little things that slightly move, or just trying something like Sarah did, with that show. And what worked for her may not work for another show. So
Right.
people will try the tip and it won't work. And they're like, oh, this doesn't work. And you really have to have almost this like menu of things you're going to try for your show. And you have to also track it, because if you throw everything at the wall and then the numbers go up but you try 10 different things, you wouldn't know like which of the 10 got you the result. So probably speaking back to your marketing brain as well, just kind of, you gotta, what is it's the Drucker quote: what gets measured gets managed.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I've tried so many things. And what the one thing that actually moved the needle for me, and again, like you're right, it may not work for everybody else, but I would create a Quora post for every show. And so if I had a founder, for example, that was making an application on how to pay your bills in Europe, through your phone. And I would create a Quora post like, how do you pay your bills in Europe? Right. And then I would talk about the product or whatever. And then I would say, if you want to go into learn more about this and hear about the founder, you can hear the interview on this episode and blah, blah, blah. And some of those Quora posts got like thousands of views. And some of those people were clicking to listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
Some of them got maybe a couple of dozen views, not so much. You never really knew which one would click. But over time, that contributed a lot to my growth in the podcast.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So B2B Pod Pros, tell me a little bit more about what they do. Is it just the group or do you provide other services?
Yeah. So, of course, we have the community. Once a month, we have a special guest that talks about some sort of, tip for podcasters. And we have a private Slack community. And the other thing that we do, though, is that not every podcaster wants to do this, but most of them do, is that we give SaaS companies the opportunity to get their message inserted, B2B podcasts. And we primarily focus on, podcasts that are in the SaaS space, the startup space, B2B marketing, product marketing, as well as a little bit of e-commerce and HR. And we started doing that a little over a year ago. We've had some great clients. We had Dealfront that's been working with us for over a year.
Yep.
We've had Deal, Nasuni, Mouseflow, and several more clients. But we offer host-read ads. We're starting to experiment with product placement this year, which is sort of like an organic way the host can talk about the product a little bit that doesn't feel like an ad. Yeah. And in addition, most of our campaigns are omni-channel. So, you know this as podcasters, we've got a newsletter. Some of us have a YouTube channel. Some of us do LinkedIn Lives. Some of us may be willing to have a specific guest on our show if it relates to, our audience. And so I prepare these campaigns for clients that are not just, podcast advertising campaigns, but they're omni-channel campaigns, generally spread across 5 to 10 podcasts over the span of usually 4 to 8 weeks.
Okay. And so when you think about the folks that are in the network, they're typically B2B shows with a B2B audience, and that's why it's a good fit for like the sponsors that you work with?
Absolutely. The requirements, you've had to at least publish 30 episodes. You need to be consistent, at least a show published every other week. And I want to see that you're marketing your show on at least one social channel, ideally LinkedIn, you're promoting it there. And so if you meet those requirements, then obviously you can be a part of the network. And whenever I have a potential client, one thing I'll do is I'll reach out to you and like, hey, I already kind of know what your show is all about. And I've never had a podcaster say, no, it's not an ideal fit. But basically I'll reach out to you and say, I've got this proposal I'm working on and I'd like to include you in it and just want to confirm that it's okay with you, right? And that's how it generally works out. And we agree on what your rate's going to be. Usually it's based on a tier system. And so I have different rates that I offer podcasters based on their reach, and which is basically listens or downloads by month. Yeah. And that's how it works out. And then I usually add a 20 to 30% commission on top of that to cover my fee.
And so is there a fee to join B2B Pod Pros?
There should be. No, I mean, there should be. And the website I actually put for the first time recently that, there's a $10 monthly charge to join. I haven't really charged anybody yet.
How many shows you got in there?
Well, I think there's 60 plus podcasts and part of the network. And so I'm not necessarily picky who I let in, but it's not necessarily about, hey, the network. It's really about, do you want to contribute to the community? Do you want to be a part of the group? Because a lot of the podcasters, they've gotten to know each other. They've gotten to go on each other's shows. Yeah. And it's a good time when we call in. I've gotten to know everybody, and I want to work with people who I enjoy working with.
Yeah, for sure. Life is too short to not do that, right?
Exactly. There's actually one person I've had to not necessarily kick out of the community, but it just wasn't a good fit. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love the fact that you really hold the quality of the membership in high regard because, it's a reflection of you and it's a reflection of who else is in there. And so if there's someone that's not a fit, it's nice. It's almost like they say when you have to fire your clients because they're just like, that's always a hard thing to do because, you don't want to lose that revenue, but then just like, it's not who we are, it's not aligned with our mission and our values. And it sounds like that's what you're thinking when you make those decisions.
Absolutely. And, I love sales calls, if you want to call them that, because, part of the sales call is really, you're not really buying the reach, you're buying the person behind the podcast. And
Yeah.
everybody who's part of the community, I enjoy talking about. I've got a slide that has information about them, but I can kind of go deeper than that. I'm like, oh, they're also found at this, and they have their own,
Yeah.
product, and they're great on LinkedIn if you ever see their content. And that's how it
Yeah.
is with just about everybody, that's a part of
That's
the
great.
community.
I imagine so it helps. It's like a nice community because you got to help each other and get visibility for the shows, but also if everyone's like chiming in on the LinkedIn post as well, it doesn't hurt. It probably helps their LinkedIn visibility as well.
Yeah, a lot of them engage with each other's posts, and a lot
Yeah.
of them have been on each other's podcasts,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's great. I mean, especially when they can refer each other for different,
Yeah.
jobs and things like that. Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely have a look because I'm always looking for fascinating folks to come on my show. And it's just an open format. All, the precursors that you've been podcasting for a while and you're passionate about
Oh
your
man,
shows.
I've got a few ideas for you already.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So, when you think about being in the podcasting space, so naturally, I imagine there's opportunities that pop up for other things you can offer. So let's talk a little bit about PodKit.
Yeah. So one of the members in my community from Southern Cal, he said, Eric, I'm working with my partner. He's in Romania, like you. And I think
Yeah,
you should meet him because he wants to build something for podcasters. And I said, yeah, sure. All right. And send me his contact information. And I got his contact information and I reached out,
yeah,
and he's a kid. He's in high school. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll get on a call with them. And I thought it was going to be a quick call. And I'm like, I'm doing this out of a courtesy for one of the members in
sure,
my
sure, sure.
community, right?
Yeah,
And I get on the phone with him, and he's a nice guy, and we're talking. And he's got these wireframes of what he wants to build. And as soon as I saw the wireframes, I was like, within a millisecond, I'm like, I'm in. Because there was this online media kit for podcasters. And
yeah.
the crazy thing is that here's this kid, he's not even a podcaster, but he recognized that there should be something out there that doesn't exist yet. And so when you
Mm,
go to Google, when you type in Media Kit Podcasters, all the links are like for Canva or for Adobe
yeah,
or how to
yeah.
create something like in PDF or some Google
Yep.
Slides or whatever. There's nothing about an online media kit.
Hmm.
And he's like, yeah, no, I want to create this thing where it automatically pulls the downloads information, the audience information from Spotify and Apple
Yep.
Podcasts and YouTube. You can also pull information instantaneously from Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn, and you can customize it how you want. You could put what your top episode is in there. Once you create it, it only takes like 5 minutes. You never have to worry about it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. And so this was in November of last year. And by December, we were close to having the beta ready. And so I think we had
Yeah.
the beta version ready, and I shared it with all the members in my community. And that's how
Hmm.
we got I think we had at least 10 or 12 people give us good feedback, and we
Yeah.
made some adjustments. And by February, by close to February, we had the email automation set up. So if somebody signed up, the series of emails they would get. We decided on what the paid version would look like. So there's a free version.
Yep.
The free version, you can sync up to 2 different platforms, but the paid version, obviously, you can do more than that.
Yeah.
And then you also get notification when somebody views your media kit with the paid version,
Hmm.
and you can download multiple PDFs or as many as you want with a paid version. But the best thing that we're currently working on is the AI feature that automatically finds you potential sponsors based on your show.
Mm. Wow.
So once you describe your show, AI does its work, and it's like, okay,
Nice.
based on your show, here's 20 potential sponsors, and
Yeah.
here's who to contact at those sponsors, right? Here's
Perfect.
the marketing people.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be rolling out pretty soon. And we went
Nice.
live in March, at the beginning of March, and it's called PodKit, PODK.IT. And, we were so excited. I mean, the first day we had 2 paying customers, and I'm on Facebook communities talking about it, and I'm starting to get myself booked on. I'm using Alex's tool, Podmatch, and I'm getting booked on podcasts that talk
Yeah.
about podcasting so I could talk about
Yeah.
it. And I have this go-to market strategy with 25 different things I'm going to be working on over the next few months to get
Yeah.
awareness. And the second week, he tells me hey, I got these people on X on Twitter.
Yeah.
I kind of know a couple of them. and they've built and sold, companies that are podcast related before, and,
Mm.
that are six figures, and they want to chat with us. And I'm like, okay. And they're in California. And I call him the kid. We have a call at
Yeah.
6 a.m. our time. And we're talking to some people in California, and they liked what he was building. And, it was a good call. And I kind of saw where it was going. And the kid tells me the next day, like, okay, they gave us three offers, or three options. The first option is, basically buy us out, and that's it. The second option, they give us like, sort of like a commission, and then I go work
Sure.
for them.
Okay.
And then the third option is we don't do nothing, and they have their team of engineers that are going to build something similar, and within a couple of months they'll be able to go beat us in the marketing strategy.
Sure.
And so, I said, hey, this is mostly your product. I'm a small equity owner. You do what your heart decides. And he really wanted to go work with them. He's going to be head of product.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm really happy for him. And so we're basically finalized the details already. And that was the quickest startup venture I've had to date.
That's a great result. So it was generating revenue at the time, or they believed in the concept. They already saw what the potential was.
Oh, they already saw the potential. I mean, you've already got like Shaquille O'Neal, Marshall Flinch using this thing already because of the connections they have in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all the feedback, even the initial feedback we got, were like, oh, this is fantastic. The design is fantastic, easy to use. Once you create it, you never have to mess with it again. I think it's more beautiful than anything that's even remotely out there in the market. And they saw that.
That's great. And so when you think about other opportunities like that, is it just a matter of being open to them, or is just, do you have your hands full with B2B Pros and your show, or what's next on the map for you?
Yeah, well, I think it's being to open. I would say that your network matters a lot, because if I didn't have my network, I would have never gotten this opportunity, or been invited to chat with Vic. So your network probably matters more than you being able to spot opportunity. Well, I don't know, but obviously, a lot of the opportunities that you see are based on the connections that you have, the people who know you.
Of course. Yeah.
And the more people who know you and know what you do, the more opportunities are going to come your way. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So Eric, you're obviously heavily involved in with the network, with your shows, with your own show. And then there's a big wave of noise around AI and, how disruptive it's going to be. But for podcasters, we use a couple of solid tools in our workflow, which has been extremely helpful for us. I'm curious what your take is, what you see in terms of the future of AI impacting, helping to podcasters, solo podcasters, or where do you stand on what you're seeing from your end?
Yeah. So we recently had Joe Casabano. Do you know Joe?
Oh, yeah. I know Joe. He's been on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. He was a special guest on our show, on our meetup a couple of months ago. And the stuff he was showing us with the automations that he does, like with Zapier and some other tools out there, 99% of podcasters are not even using that kind of automation. And so I still feel like we have a long way to go. And even if you can streamline a lot of the process, I feel like people want to tune into podcasts for the authenticity. And I don't think that will be replaced. I'm sure there will be some people who listen to podcasts that are AI hosted, but I think the majority of people want real, authentic conversations.
Yeah.
And so I still believe podcast is the strongest medium out there that provides that.
Yeah. What were some of the automations that he was doing? Was that like an automated show, or was it automations to help with the production workflow?
With the production, everything from onboarding to accepting, applicants, to making sure that of a show, once it's been recorded, that it goes out to the appropriate, like the editor, the designer, everybody who's on his team. So he was showing us how he utilizes Notion with Zapier and with Gmail, and then also Google Drive or Box. But it was some really cool stuff that he shared with the group. And we were all amazed, because I think he manages 3 different podcasts. And a lot of this automation takes care of all those, stuff that takes maybe 3 or 4 minutes to do, but all those things add up.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I mean, even if it saves you 1 or 2 hours a week, that adds up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, are you surprised by the pace at which things are moving in the AI world?
Oh, yeah. But I still feel like we're living in a box, because, my parents don't even know what ChatGPT GPT
Of
is.
course.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
my wife, for example, she refuses to even use it. She thinks, oh, that's for people that are just lazy.
Mm.
Like, call
It's
me.
so funny because I just read an email about how this has been like programmed into like working hard is the, associated with like if you don't work hard, you're lazy.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like this old school, like, I don't know if it comes from like the Prussian mindset of like how we were indoctrinated here to like work and Puritan values of like, don't be lazy. And like if you, God forbid, you find something that makes your job easier, like I think we're slowly moving out of this world of like, we're training people and even in the education system, like everyone's trained to work in a factory. Like that was how the education system was built,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like getting out of this mindset of like, hey, maybe working easier and using these tools gives us more free time to get more done in a shorter period of time. You're still meeting the objective of what you've been paid to do. But this idea that we all need to just sit in front of a computer for 8 hours, 9 to 5 is, having myself worked in corporate for 20 plus years is like, it was a shift to get out of that mindset of like, oh, I'm supposed to be at my desk at like 9 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I use them a lot. I mean, obviously, I started with ChatGPT, but now I use
Yeah.
Lindy AI, and
Mm.
I've got AI agents that help me with, sending me an email an hour before my calls and just kind of give me an update, like prepping me. Here's
Yeah.
the communication you've had. Here's what the agenda is probably going to
That's
be.
great.
I've got an AI agent that automatically replies to certain emails that I get. I get a lot of requests for people to be on my show, and I have an automated email that goes out now. It recognizes certain texts, and
Okay.
it sends the response out. I've got an AI widget that I created, for my website, and it's sort of like anybody who asks questions. It references like a Google Doc,
Mm-hmm.
and it formulates a response using AI based on what it found in the Google Doc. Agent.ai is another little platform that I like going to, and you can find little AI agents to do maybe an SEO, keyword analysis or something for your
Mm.
website. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, there's like cool little things that I play around with. But I think it definitely, if you can figure out how to use it, then you're much more productive and you're much more
Absolutely.
efficient. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just been focused on mainly ChatGPT because it's almost like its own rabbit hole, and they keep changing. They've added the image feature as well, so we're playing with that for like creating thumbnails. And you have to have the discipline to learn the prompting. I think that's really where the secret
Yeah.
sauce is to like how to speak to them. And even I was explaining to a friend of mine, we went out for dinner, and again, he's brand new to this world, and I was like, you can tell ChatGPT to build a prompt for you that you would then use in ChatGPT. Which was like blew his mind. It was like, tell me how to talk to you. Like
Yeah.
when ChatGPT was kind of first blew up, I was like, this is going to be the most important skill to learn how to talk to the robots.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Well,
yeah.
there's the mobile app, and it took me a while, but I finally downloaded ChatGPT mobile,
Oh yeah.
and I took a picture of this like flyer here at this grocery store in Romania because I was
Yeah.
curious to what it said.
Yeah.
And I uploaded the picture and I just said translate this into English, and it did. And I was blown
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
amazed.
Same thing. I think the aha moment for me was when I was like, I DJ, so I've got my turntables and my vinyl, and I was getting casters for the wheels on the back of the bookshelf. And I was in the hardware store and I was like, oh, these casters, each one holds like 150 pounds. So I went to ChatGPT, I said, I have the IKEA bookshelf, the common 8 panel one, and I'm buying these casters, and this is what I want to put in there, and this is how much each one holds. And you can see it doing the calculations. Okay, it knew the bookshelf because it's the popular one. It said, well, each vinyl weighs about a pound, and you can fit about 40 vinyls in each of these panels. So the total combined weight would be about 350 pounds. So you'd probably need like 6 casters. And I was just like, I did that in 30 seconds in like the Home Depot and
Wow.
the aisle. And I was like, just if you just have to think about, pushing it to its limits of what you can ask it. And like you said, you could take pictures of stuff now, and there's really like this, it's like the sky's the limit. It's
Yeah.
almost like you just keep pushing it to say, figure this out for me. And I've had it like go through legal documents,
Oh yeah.
analyze PDFs, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I did it for my contract with the kid because I was going to be an equity owner, and
Of
I'm like,
course.
what should I have so that way that my shares are protected if we go and fundraise and blah blah.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, yeah,
amazing. It was
yeah,
absolutely amazing, what it pulled out. But I think if you're interviewing right now, and I think moving forward, I think employers want to know how are you using AI or ChatGPT, and if you're not,
yeah,
why would they pick you versus another candidate that is, that's going to be
yeah,
much more
absolutely.
productive.
Yeah, yeah, because they'll feel like they can just get more done if you understand. And I think, yeah, it's Wild West world, and I think it's It's interesting because there's people that have this, that your wife's reaction to it is some friends that I have, their reaction to it, like, no, it's just like a toy. And I'm like, you really like, there's a lot to look into, and it could really help, you know, move us into a new era where we're like working less, but just getting 10 times more stuff done.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's
Yeah.
not like, I mean, she was top of her class in her graduating class.
Yeah.
It's not like she's somebody who's lazy. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but she does feel like, oh, it's a cheat thing and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, it helps you. It makes you work.
Yeah.
I was actually giving a panel discussion. I was like the panel leader and I needed a good opening. And it was here in Bucharest and kind of just gave a description. I'm like, give me some ideas for a good story.
Sure.
And it gave me a great idea. I mean, it was just a
Yeah.
great idea. And I was like, wow, you can literally use this thing for almost
Yeah.
just about anything.
And it's the same thing in the past. You would have hired a research assistant to kind of like who knows the country, and the panel would have done research on all the panelists. It probably would have been like a week-long project for them. Like go through all these people, go through their LinkedIn, look at where I'm speaking, like, and now you get it done in a couple of minutes with the proper prompt, right? So
Absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, like, what are some good questions to ask these people, right? You throw in,
yeah,
do some research on them on the internet. What are some great
yeah.
questions? I mean, I feel almost guilty that I'm not paying for it. I mean, I'm using the free version.
Oh, the free version too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what the paid version gets you, but the
Yeah.
free version is just, I feel guilty not even paying for it.
I think it's just more memory storage because I put a lot of my training courses in there. It knows a lot about like what I do, who I serve. So when I'm working on anything like for a proposal, it's just like almost like an assistant sitting next to me. Like I recorded a call I had with a prospect, and it basically I said, analyze the transcript of this call, pull out like what their needs are based on what the question, how they answered the questions,
Yeah.
and let's like create a proposal. It's not just like here's what we do and here's how much it costs. It was like this is what your pain points are. This is what you said you were struggling with. This is what, I envisioned like 12 titles for their first 12 episodes. Like I gave them podcast titles just based on the conversation. And it's just like, I imagine some of that will have a better impact because, like you said, you have to almost start to compete at this level using these tools because your peers and your competitors are doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Eric, we have a couple questions I like to ask as we wrap up each conversation. The first is, what is something you've changed your mind about recently?
Oh. Okay. I read this quote by, I think it was by Charlie Munger. And it was said something like, don't strive to be the most intelligent or the most creative. You should strive to not be stupid. And I look back on my life and I feel like, God dang it, he's right.
I know. Yeah, and I'm doing the same thing as you say that too. So that's a good
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
I think that's one thing, and it's that quote really stuck with me. It's now when I think about decisions, I just think about, well, what's the stupid decision, and let's not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's the most misunderstood thing about you?
misunderstood thing here, man. I don't know. I have no idea. Based on our conversation, what would I think the most misunderstood thing is that people think, okay, they associate me as being like, oh, that's Eric the podcaster. And I think that's because that's mostly what I talk about maybe on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by far it's just a little piece of the pie, and it's not even the thing that probably I'm most proud of. I mean, the thing I'm most proud of is being a good dad. I
Yeah.
love being a dad of my kids. And the other thing that I'll start working on later this year is, I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but like a calling. Have you ever felt like you had a calling?
Yeah. Yeah. At times, depending on
So,
where I'm
yeah,
in
what was
life.
your calling when it first happened?
I think around related to like the agency and this concept. I was on a podcast and I shared this story of like I almost died when I went to a trip to Thailand, and I had this like a aha moment years later of like how sad it would be to die with my voice inside of me, like not having shared my voice with the world. And that's kind of what led me, eventually to the podcast and sharing my story. And now I have a newsletter I call The Life Worth Living, where I share like the ups and downs of life. And I think as a man growing up, I'm 54. I've been doing some men's work lately, and this like there's a lot of this lone wolf mindset with men, and it's like I got to do it my own. I got to like get this done, and not opening up. And so I've been on a couple of retreats where when you have an experience of being with other men who are
Yeah,
open-hearted
yeah,
and sharing, crying, and sharing space together and breaking bread, you realize like it's almost like an epidemic of loneliness and people not speaking up for themselves. So I've tied this all, kind of related to podcasting and the work we do at the agency. And I was like, I have this mission of just helping people find their voice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so kind of like you, I've had this calling that's been with me for about a year now. It's actually related to loneliness.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I feel like I'm pretty good at is bringing people together and making social connections and helping people build friendships. And I haven't been doing that the past couple of years. And it's not necessarily like a product or anything I'm going to build or a service or anything, but I do want to start making that reality happen. So back in 2023, I think I hosted 6 cocktail parties with strangers I had never even met in person. And they're like, 13 to 20 people.
Yeah.
If you ever read Nick Gray's, have you ever heard of Nick Gray? He wrote the 2-Hour Cocktail Party book.
Okay. No, I
Anyway,
haven't heard of it.
I heard of this book I heard about this book on a podcast, and I'm like, this sounds interesting. And I bought it, and I put out a tweet about it, and I'm like, oh, this sounds so cool, I'm going to try it. And Nick Gray responded, and he's like, oh, if you have any questions, let me know. And he has this website, for like the first 100 people who did a cocktail party, anyway.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. He and I have gotten a chance to get to know each other a little bit, but he's inspired so many people to go and do these cocktail parties. And he gives you the step-by-step playbook, right?
Oh, wow.
And so what I want to do is something similar to that, but I think where most people make the mistake or mess up when it comes to creating good friendships is the follow-up. Because anybody can go out and meet somebody, right?
Yeah.
But just like in anything else, you've got to water it, you got to maintain it, because if you don't, then it'll fade away. And so that's where I feel like I can sort of like teach people, not necessarily teach people, but show them like, hey, man, once a week, you got to set aside 15, 20 minutes and just send that text, make that phone call.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you
course.
don't, if you haven't at least, I think I saw this somewhere, but at least 7 interactions that are at least 30 minutes long in person with somebody, then the chances of them being a good friend are very, very low.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
So anyway,
are they co-ed? Are they co-ed gatherings?
Yeah, co-ed gatherings, really interesting people. And the way that he has it set up is, everybody gets a name tag. You have a couple of icebreakers that are just very casual, but it gives everybody a chance to meet, get to know each other. And at the end of it, everybody's like so happy, because you go to these networking events or these big conferences and you don't really get to socialize or meet somebody, in depth. But with these cocktail parties, you have the ability to do that. The key is, well, there's a lot of different keys, but is the icebreakers. And so some of the icebreakers are really good because, for example, one is like, what's something that you've read or listened to or watched in the past, month that you would like to share with everybody. And so just by sharing that little insight, you're sharing a little bit of your personality and what you like. And somebody else might be in the room and be like, oh, I also enjoyed that book, or I also like that podcast. So now you have those 2 or 3 people that are like now connecting and now want to associate or, connect with outside of this. And it's like those little chance gatherings for people to connect who, otherwise would have never gotten to know each other, and just, be the facilitator of those events.
So you just find a location that's willing to host and everyone just shows up there?
Ideally, you do it at your place, your house, or your apartment.
Oh,
The first one I did
Okay.
was my place. And I swear to God, the playbook is there, man. It's like, get rid of all the chairs, because when somebody sits down, it kind of kills it. They can no longer socialize. So what I did is, there's a co-working meetup spot here in Bucharest, and I work with them, and I have a deal where anytime I do an event there, I'll talk about it on LinkedIn. I'm like, special thanks to, this whatever on LinkedIn, tag them, put them on my newsletter, and they get that publicity and promotion if they let me host the event. And so that's worked out. That's worked out great.
Yeah. I've already got a space in mind that's in town here. So
Yeah.
I'm going to look at it.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, like, how has fatherhood changed you?
Oh, man. Fatherhood is, I'm excited, and I'm so happy I had my kids when I was in my 40s, because I think, I already lived my life, and or at least that part of my life. And then now it's just all about them. It's like the greatest joy is knowing that you have the chance to be a coach, a guide, a parent to another human being, and have a huge impact on the trajectory of their life.
To
To grow up and be something that it can be amazing. They don't have to be, a doctor or a scientist or
Sure.
whatever, an astronaut, but sort of like share with them all the things that you wish you had known or you had learned
Mm.
at a
Yeah.
much younger age. Because I come from two parents who basically were young. They weren't college educated. They had me by accident. They were 18,
Uh,
and they didn't really know any better. I mean, come on, they were
yeah.
kids.
Yeah. Of course.
And they never taught me, about finance. I grew up with a lot of debt. Like when I was like close to
Yeah.
28 or 29, I already had 12 or $13,000 debt. I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
there's so much things that I could share with them now because I'm a little bit older and wiser that they're ideally, when they become adults, they'll be so far ahead in the game of life than I was.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Well, thanks for this fascinating conversation. Like I said, I wasn't sure where it'd go, and I'm just always excited when it just takes its twists and turns. And it's so interesting to see how the arc of like your journey, is taking you to where you live now and how you ended up in the podcasting space and the value you're adding for podcasters and the enthusiasm you have for what you do. So that comes through in this conversation. So I appreciate you sharing it. It's really inspiring.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Harry.
Where's the best place for folks to connect with you?
LinkedIn, pretty active there. Just look for Eric Melchor.
Okay. And yeah, you've provided all those links to us as well, so we'll make sure those are in the show notes. Thanks again, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.